Okay.
The kozo they can take home, and they can do some collaging with the used tea or
Which is
used.
very cool.
And if there's maybe if they can pick some of the sage flowers,
Yeah, we can pick sage flowers. That's not a
that can
problem.
just add to their, and they can collage onto these. Whereas the paper over here is the abaca.
Okay.
And with the abaca, this is what we're going to be using for the Odes to Common Things paper. So this paper we keep.
Okay, because you dry it off and then that ends up becoming your next batch. Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So it's
Nice.
all this pay it forward kind of process.
Yeah, and it looks really pretty. Found when I was like, no, it looks like a banana sitting on a rock all the way out there. Yes. And I'm gonna grab my water bottle.
Absolutely. But we're here till I think 5 today.
Yeah.
So we're going to be starting the nature walk in a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then if you want to return back here,
So good afternoon. It still feels like morning, but good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sara. I work with the Cortland Park Alliance. I am thrilled to welcome you all to the park, to our garden today. Has anybody been to Cortland Park before? Okay. Has anybody never been to Cortland Park before? Okay, so then welcome, especially if this is your first time. Once we get out there, I'm not going to talk too much, so I'm going to give you some information here, and that way any stragglers can still catch up with us. Cortland Park is the third largest park in New York City. We're 1,146 acres, which is about 1,000 football fields. If that helps you picture it better. I can't picture acres in my head, so that helps me picture it better. The largest park in the Bronx, in the city, any guess what the largest one is? In the city. So Pelham Bay in the Bronx is actually the largest in the whole city. Central Park is almost always what people guess first. Watch this car. I don't know where they're going. I was going to say that's not how he gets into the parking lot. He has figured it out. Okay. So a lot of times I get Central Park. Central Park is famous. Central Park is beautiful. Central Park gets movies shot in it. It is only 800 acres. It is much smaller than us. It's like number 5 or 6 on the list. The first largest park is actually Pelham Bay. It's over 2,700 acres. Pelham Bay is where Orchard Beach is found. So Orchard Beach is a very small section of a very big park, but that means the Bronx is 25% green space. The Bronx is actually our greenest borough, and we're usually moving fast. We're going to work, we're fixing this, we're taking care of people, we're taking care of everything that needs to happen, and we're always moving fast, and we don't always get a chance to get out and see nature and appreciate nature and really stop to take a breath and be observant and present in the moment we're in. I talk fast, I walk fast, I talk fast, I work with kids, so I'm usually all happy and bouncy and active. It is something special when I'm able to get a group of adults out here and really slow down, and that's going to really be the focus of today's hike. We're not going far, we're not doing anything difficult. The goal really is to just very slowly meander through some of the paths up here in the Northwest Woods. It's a beautiful section of forest. There's a lot of tulip trees and oak trees in this area. You actually get a little bit of elevation, which we're not going up too high. But all in this area is just really, really pretty. So we're gonna just go slowly. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I am gonna attempt to not talk much during the hike, but ask me any questions that you've got. While we go out there, I'll also just point out where the bathroom is when we pass it, and I will definitely point out poison ivy as soon as we pass it, because that's the only thing you really have to watch for while you're out here. But otherwise, we're just gonna enjoy a beautiful day out in the park. Any questions, comments, or concerns so far? Awesome, then let's go this way. Oak trees, probably oaks and maples. Of our maples, ironically, it's Norway maples making up a very large percentage of the forest. But in most areas, we're really trying to get a lot more oak species in because they're so good ecologically for hosts and hosts of insects and birds and other animals. So before we get a little farther into the woods, I do want to point out poison ivy. Anybody know what poison ivy does? Gives you a rash. Not everybody is allergic to it. I always tell the groups, even if somehow we all manage to walk through it, everybody's not going to get a rash, and the people who do will not all get the same rash, but we're not going to test that theory. It's also an allergy that changes. I've never been allergic to it, but I'm still going to avoid it because my body might decide right now, especially since I have a dog that I'm slightly allergic to, that my body is done and all of a sudden I'm going to end up with a poison ivy rash. Yeah, so we're definitely going to avoid it today. And as long as you're on the path, you're perfectly fine. Poison ivy has 3 leaves, and it's either going to grow as a ground cover. So you see some of it over there, some of it over there, and a few bits of it over there. Or they look like every other plant. I'm pointing it out here just because it's the first one we pass. As we walk farther, I'll point it out where it's in bigger sections. Or it ends up growing as a vine. In this section, it's not one of the vines over here, so I'm gonna point that out as soon as we pass it. But I wanted to just give you a quick early sighting of it. It's native. It belongs in this ecosystem. It does in May and June have tiny little flowers and berries that the animals eat. It's only primates that are actually allergic to it. The animals run through it, it does nothing. Your dog can run through it, it does nothing. But it's the oil on the leaves that gives you a rash. So if my dog runs through it, oil doesn't evaporate, it just kind of dries up. If I'm allergic to it, I pet my dog, I can then potentially transfer that oil to me. If I walk through it and it's on the bottom of my jeans, it's not touching my skin, it's not doing anything. If I don't wash my jeans, I touch it, I can potentially move that oil around. So we do just want to be careful. Another thing that we'll be passing, I mentioned that a lot of the trees here are tulip trees. So this is one of the tulip flowers. The tulip flowers end up being all the way at the top of the trees and you don't get to see them until they fall. Tulip trees are going to be your tallest, straightest trees in this area. They were prized by Native Americans for canoes. They were prized by early colonists because all of a sudden they could use them for ship masts because they're tall, they're straight, and they would have been incredibly big at that point. I love them. They're one of my favorite trees. That's the leaf of them, so that's how it gets its name, tulip tree, because it's got this tulip-shaped leaf. So I always liked it because when I started working here, it was one of the first things I could very easily identify. I still can't tell the difference between every type of oak and every type of maple that's out here because we've got dozens, but I can always pick out a tulip tree, which is always nice. Being videotaped is weird. Yes! So what are the little white fuzzy things? Anybody else notice the little white fuzzy things? That's your pollen from the cottonwood trees. We get really crazy storms all of a sudden. We get heavy rain, lots of wind, like hurricane force storms fairly often at this point, and something like this is the result of that. When the ground is just so saturated and the wind is blowing so hard against a tree this big, those roots just cannot hold on anymore, and you end up with a tree that blows over like this.
Some storm.
Yeah, we have had some really major storms, and you're gonna see some more storm damage at the second half of the hike from different types of storms. So the trails in the park are marked. What we're walking on here, if you're on gravel, you're probably on the cross-country trail. Van Cortland Park has a 3-mile loop and a 5-mile loop for cross-country. I personally can't imagine running this, but thousands of people do, and it's amazing to watch them. So that's how we delineate that trail. The other trails, and as soon as I pass it, they are color coded with the markers on the tree. And if you go to the map, they're color coded on the map as well, so that you know where you are. Most of the trails in Van Cortlandt Park either go north-south or they go, well, actually only John Muir goes east-west. Most go up, down, north and south, or they do a loop. There's always little desire lines and offshoots on them, but for the most part, I think the trails are fairly easy to navigate. And even though we are over 1,000 acres, if you get lost and you just pick a direction, you're coming out on the sidewalk in an hour or so. You're not lost out here for a week. No one's sending in helicopters for you. You will absolutely find the sidewalk quickly. I have definitely done that and been on the Yonkers border instead of the Broadway border. But you will find a sidewalk and be okay. There's also a lot of people present in the park, so you're really never all that secluded, but for safety, we always also say hike with people. You fall, you hurt yourself, you don't want to be out there by yourself trying to hobble back. So the white blazes are for an official trail, but not a trail that's named. So they're just going to be the generic white, but they're going to tell you you're on a place that you're supposed to be on. And then there's other trails that are color coded. A whole set of rocks over that way. Van Cortlandt Park, much like the rest of this area, was formed by the last glacier period. So we're looking at rocks deposited by glaciers 10, 20,000 years ago. We're looking at a lot of old growth forest. This section of the park is forever wild, which means we have a lot of protections on what can happen here to preserve this part of nature. We are about to have sections of the forest here inducted into the old growth forest network. So when we get back to the garden, there's a little flyer about that event that's happening on the table. So we have a lot of nature in Van Cortlandt Park. Central Park, like we said before, is beautiful, but almost every inch of it is man-made. The stream coming out of a rock is still being rerouted through a pipe to look like that. So it's a very different use of nature and a very different stewardship of the land that we've got here. We definitely aim to make sure that people, plants, and animals are all safe and maintained in this area. We have tons of volunteers that get out here that help to maintain this, to make sure that it's something that's going to last and be valuable for many different reasons.
I have a question.
Go for it.
There was, at least last year, a family of deer here in the park, and I haven't seen them this year. Are they still here?
So I have no idea if the deer were officially living here or not. We generally do not have deer that stay here. I saw the family of deer. They walked right behind the back fence of our garden one day, which was really cool because I see deer fairly often the last few years, but I had never seen a baby before. What happens is, at the end of the season and at the beginning of the season, when the deer kind of expand their range because they're looking for food, they end up following the highways down, find our park because we've got 3 highways that cut through us, and then they tend to go back up into Westchester where it's a little bit safer and easier for them to live. Our park is clearly big enough to support deer, but not once you cut it up into a dozen pieces with highways. So they're not going to generally stay here. Many years ago, some deer that made its way down continued walking south instead of walking north, and they had to catch it at the parking lot at Target over on 225th Street and kind of bring it back upstate.
Oh my God.
You know, there's a deer that lives underneath the George Washington Bridge in Memphis.
Is there really?
Yeah, it's really sad.
Oh, that's
You
weird.
know, I really feel like they should take her and move her someplace. Yeah, she's
I'm surprised she hasn't kind of made her
big
way
baby. It was like
over.
last year I saw
Yeah.
Talking to some other runner, and they were
But
like, oh.
but that's what ends up happening. They come like very early spring. We see them here, and they are so much bigger when they're up close and really quiet. I've literally walked down the path and realized there's a deer right there and not noticed them until something just sparked me to see it. So it's always really fun seeing the deer in the park. It is the deer ticks that we're looking out for, so there's good and bad there. But yeah, we do end up with a decent number of deer now, but they generally don't stay too long. I think for coyotes, the last we heard was there was at least 6 coyotes here. So what's funny is I don't think I've ever actually seen the coyote out here. They are generally farther into the park than where I am, and if they come out to the outer sections, it's much earlier than I'm generally out there. They're really just gonna look like a scraggly dog at this point. Because they're hunting for their own food, so they're not gonna be too big in. We're gonna go up this. This is usually where I stop with groups. Yeah, this is actually where I usually do that with groups. We can stop for a minute. He's good enough, he only needed one. If you guys do look, the blue trail marker is the Cass Gallagher Trail. So a lot of our trails do intersect and pass each other. Cass Gallagher is much longer, so we're not gonna follow all of it today. We're gonna do a little section of it here. Cass Gallagher goes up this way, and you actually end up at some of the highest elevation areas of the park. You'll pass a few huge car-sized boulders that were left here by the last glacier period, which is pretty cool. There's a few varieties of plants in this section. There's a lot of little ephemeral spring flowers that are only found in certain sections of the park. And there were a few here that I found last year that I haven't found in other areas of the park. And you end up, as you keep going in this section, at one point you're actually above the rooftops of Yonkers, and you can kind of look out over Yonkers. It then goes down and you end up with some more wetland area like what we had started with at the beginning of our walk. So it's a really beautiful section of the park, and I do encourage you guys to come out here and do the loop if you get the chance. If you guys look out, all of those straight trees are gonna be your tulip trees. Tulip trees also turn bright yellow, like a golden yellow in the fall. This is a beautiful section of forest in the fall because the whole ground is littered in golden leaves and your whole canopy is littered in golden leaves, and it's really beautiful. So if you head up Cass Gallagher, there's a couple. If you want ones that are a little bit more accessible when you're going towards the Vault Hill area of the park, so when you go up this way, instead of heading left, you would head right towards Vault Hill. There's a few that aren't actually too far from the parade ground of the park that are easy to get to also, and I can grab a map and show you where those